So after you've carved your block and you're ready to print, first thing we need to do is get our paper ready. So typically we're going to be working with Japanese paper because it prints really well. I mean, relief is pretty forgiving. You can print on just about any paper, but I found Japanese paper to work the best in printing by hand as well as printing on the press. So I've got a large sheet of Japanese paper, and the first thing that I do is figure out, well, what size do I need? And one way to do that certainly is by just laying the block on the paper and thinking about your paper border. The paper border should serve as a neutral space that kind of buffers visual noise so you can just concentrate on the image. So too little border is not good. Too much border is much less of a problem, but it can also be a visual issue. So you want to try to just kind of place it and think about, okay, what looks good on the paper? You're also balancing that, of course, with the size of your paper. So I've got a 9x12 block, and I know that my paper is 31 by 21 in this case, and so a half a sheet is 15.5 inches. So I might lay the block down and then use a ruler to just kind of measure what I think the border is visually. So if I lay it there and I think that looks good, pretty good, that's about 3 inches, that's about 2.5 inches. So maybe I split the difference, maybe I make it 2 3/4 inches. And then think about, well, where is the halfway mark? Can I get 2 sheets out of this with that size border? Now I've already pre-measured this out, and I've determined that a half of a sheet works pretty well. Right? Here's my half sheet with a little bit cut off the top. My image is a vertical, so it would be placed something like this. Right? And I've made a little printing template. I've got 2 blocks here. I've got an unmounted linoleum block, and I've got a mounted linoleum block. They're both the same size. I took a sheet of scrap paper and I made a template based on the size of my sheet. So here you can see where my block would go. You can see my borders on the top and the sides are about equal, and generally I'll leave a little bit more on the bottom, maybe a half an inch. So let's say this is 3 inches on the sides and 3 inches on the top, then I'd have about 3.5 inches on the bottom. This is a complete half, so I left that extra part. And where the line is on top is actually the actual size of my paper. Of course, having more border is always better than having too little, because if you get your image on your paper crooked, you can always trim it down a little bit too. If the borders are too tight, then it's much harder to kind of curate your image.